Hi, YouTube and my YouTube family. It's your girl, Miss Rochelle, just coming with you to give you another video. Want to share with you a little bit of my life, how I became the person that sit before you. Miss Rochelle had to really pray on this thing because, as I stated yesterday in my video, it's a lot of things that Miss Rochelle want to share. A lot of things that I want to tell, but I have to stay in communication with my Heavenly Father in order to be able to do that, because I don't do anything without Him. And so, Mother's Day is tomorrow. I want to wish all my mothers a wonderful Mother's Day. Now, let me tell you, Miss Rochelle, I think I was about 4 or 5 years old. My mom she didn't have parenting skills. She did not have it. She was not a high school graduate. My mother, by the time she was 23 years old, she had 6 children. So all my sisters and brothers are by the same mother and the same father. So it was a struggle for my mother. When you're not equipped with parenting skills, because parenting is not a book that could tell you how to be a parent, how to be a loving mother, how to be that soul encourager, how to be that supporter. It's not a book to tell you that. So my mother didn't have parenting skills. But my father came from a structured home. My grandparents only had 3 children. My father was the youngest. He was the baby. So my mother and my dad met in high school. Now, my grandmother, my dad's mother, did not care for my mother. As parents, when we have boys, because I got 2, we want the best for our children. So my grandparents did not too much care for my mother. And so, because, my grandmother just thought my father can do a whole lot better. My father was he played baseball. He loved baseball. So my father played high school baseball. He got accepted into the minors. But his last year, he slid into home base and broke his ankle real bad. And so when he got accepted to go into the minors, he had already broke his ankle bad. So he didn't get a chance to go there. But by then he had met my mother. And I think my oldest brother and my oldest sister was born. And my brother that's before me, he was on the way, And so my dad finished school. He got good jobs to provide for his family. And sometimes my dad would work 2 jobs you know, to provide for us. But with my mother not having parenting skills, she didn't have homemaking skills as well. So she would spend a lot of my dad's money on foolishness, you know. And so he would come home from work, and a lot of times the lights would be cut off, the gas, the water. And for some reason, we never moved far from my grandparents, my dad's parents. We never would be far from them. You know, like in 2 or 3 block radius, we always live close to them. So, back to the story. My youngest brother, who's now deceased, my youngest brother, at this particular time, my dad had left because he was tired, you know. He was angry, you know, at my mom. And so he went back home. But he left us with my mom. And so my mom ended up getting her boyfriend, and, you know, things just went downhill. Now, my grandfather, the peacemaker, bless his heart, he was the peacemaker. And so my grandfather would stop, you know, when he got off from work. He always came by to check on us. See, I remember that as a child. I remember that. And so he would always come and check on us to make sure we were okay, to make sure we had food, you know, to check on us. And so my oldest brother and my oldest sister would go there to my grandparents' house all the time because they were older. So they knew where my grandparents lived. So at this time, my mother, you know, when my dad left, we stayed in this apartment complex. I'll never forget. And so we stayed there 2 days. We didn't have food. My mom had left. My oldest sister and my oldest brother was there. And my youngest brother, who was still in diapers, he had run out of milk. And so we sat and we waited. I'll never forget, we waited in the parking lot, waiting. We even went to our neighbors who she was good friends with, the Fontenot's, and to ask them, you know, where was our mom. And so we sat out there and we waited, and finally we ended up walking. And my 3 older brothers and sisters took turns packing my brother. We walked to my grandparents' house, which is one bit very far, but we had to cross Calhoun, which was a busy street, you know. And so when we got there, it was dark. Yeah, it was night. When we got there, my grandmother was the matriarch of the family, because she did things that her other brothers and sisters wasn't doing. And so my grandmother only had a 6th grade education. She picked cotton in Louisiana. And so I got a rich background from them. But so we got there. My grandmother flicked on the porch light. We got there, and my grandfather say, "Florence, these children out here." So my grandmother got up and came to the door, let us in, and said, "Where's y'all mama?" You know, she got on the phone, called my mother's mother, called her, asked Miss Haynes, where was my mother? My grandmother told her, say, "I don't know where Elaine is." And so my grandmother was explaining to her. Now we sitting in my grandmother's bedroom on the floor, you know, sitting there. And so my grandmother said, well, these children here, and they say they ain't seen their mama in 2 or 3 days. See, when my grandfather come now, she was there, but she left afterwards. And see, for some reason, my grandfather, he didn't come, like he did. So we got there, and my grandmother called my mama's mama. And my grandmother, my mother's mother, told her, said, well, and by that time, my grandmother had remarried, and she had 2 other children. That's the same age as my oldest sister and my oldest brother. And so my mom's mom told her, said, well, ain't nothing I could do. I got my own children. She said, and, that's Raphael and Elaine's problem. They made that bed, they're going to have to lie in it. She didn't come. She didn't come to see about her grandchildren or anything of that nature. And so my grandmother hung up the phone, and she had nieces. My grandmother had nieces that were in adulthood, they were grown. And they were telling her, Aunt Florence, from Louisiana. See, my grandmother's name was Florence, but they would call her Florence. Aunt Florence, ain't no way you and Uncle K. That's my granddaddy. They would call him Uncle K. We call him Daddy. And it's no way that you and Uncle K can take care of those 6 children. Say, I have to let them go. My grandmother say, I ain't finna do that. She told them, she say, they been through too much already. And I ain't finna let these children go through any more heartache. Because their mama didn't walk off and left them. Not only that, she say, she talked about my daddy too, So she said, oh no, I'm not finna do that. And I ain't finna split them up. I'm gonna keep them all together, And so she did that. My grandparents, them, they added rooms on for us, They had a 2-bedroom, but they had a formal living and dining, and they had a den, and my grandmother always had sleeper sofas because she came from a big family. And so a lot of times when the family that still lived in Louisiana, they would come and visit my grandmother. So she always would have a place for them to sleep. So, I had a rich upbringing being, raised by my grandparents. And so my grandmother told them, say, no, I'm not going to do it because these children been through too much. And so my grandmother had retired from Vector Cable. My grandfather had retired from his job. And my dad, he was still working. But they called my dad and told him, my grandmother called his job and told the dispatcher that they needed to speak to him because it's a family emergency. And so when my dad did get home, my dad was very, very angry because of how my mom did, because she could have at least brought us to my grandparents' home since we didn't live far, but she didn't do that. So, even today, I don't have a relationship with my mother. Now, I tried, but it just didn't work out for me. my youngest sister the same way. So my brother, I only have one brother left because it was 3 boys, 3 girls, but we were born boy, girl, boy, girl. Go figure. Yeah, we were born that way. And so none of us really have a sound relationship with her. She showed my children who, when I tried to have a relationship with my mother, she showed the worst side of herself. And so my boys seen that as they were growing up in adulthood as adults, they actually witnessed, my mom and her behavior. And so my niece Cassidy, relationship, none of us really have a relationship with her. And so, Miss Rochelle had to learn to forgive. And although I forgave her for everything, and even after I tried, the Bible would tell you that your worst enemy will be your family. You understand? And just because she bored me did not make her a mother. Because mothers nurture. They don't leave their children. They'll pack them, and I don't care if they homeless. They gonna do that. That child gonna be right there with them, And see, for me, after I had my children, what was instilled in me? I had structure, I came from it. My grandmother was a strong woman, and I miss her. Because, she did everything for us. She did. And my grandmother was a seamstress. She could sew. She could sew anything. And she used to make us clothes, She went back. She became a Franklin Beauty School is one of the first black cosmetology schools in Houston. My grandmother went back there and got her cosmetology license. What stopped her from doing our hair was that my grandmother ended up going on dialysis. And when they put that graft in her arm, in her right arm, she could no longer do our hair. And that's what sent us out to beauticians to do our hair. And so my grandmother was a strong person, and I miss her because she would teach us, and on Saturdays, she used to get up and cook a full meal because she said, you'll never know who come into your house on Saturday. She said, you always want to have food in your house. So me, even when I lost my husband, even when my children left and I became an empty nester, I still shopped as if I had a family of 4. I still, had, and my oldest son used to tell me, say, Mama, quit, why you got all this stuff up in here? Quit buying this stuff. This stuff, you got stuff up in here expired. Quit, ain't nobody up in here but you. Why you shopping like that? See, but that's what's instilled in me. And she said, keep your house clean. She used to always tell us, keep your house clean. You don't have no nasty house, because you don't never know who coming, And see, I'm like that today. I be up in here just cleaning, singing, praying, talking, just doing my thing, child. But but I wanted to share that with you. I came from my grandmother was my mother. She was my teacher. She was my provider. My dad was, you hear me talk about my dad. I was a daddy's girl. Me and my dad's birthday is in the same month. My dad and my youngest brother's birthday is the same day, including my mother-in-law. Let me not forget that. My mother-in-law, birthday was November the 22nd. So I had three people. Amazing thing. When I met my husband and he told me that, I said, you got to be kidding. You're not going to believe this, but my dad, my brother, my brother was still living. My dad, my brother, birthday is the same month. And then I ended up marrying him, and I was the first one to get married. I had a wedding, My dad gave me away. He was so proud. He was always proud of me. That's why my oldest sister and my youngest sister, we would always fight because my daddy would always, it was me and him, And so, it was, and my youngest sister tell me, she said, I wasn't mad, but, Daddy loved you. That's what she tell me now. And I say, he love you too, but, yeah, I didn't have that. But my grandmother, that Florence, Florence gave me, mama. That's what we called her, my granddaddy, Daddy, he put it in us, They used to have card games on Friday. My grandparents still drank, and they smoked, and they used to have card games and fish fries on Friday. They stopped all that. They stopped smoking. They stopped drinking, and then that's when she began to put us in church, And so, I had a rich upbringing. But I just wanted to come to you and share that with you. It's a lot of people that don't have mothers, and but that does not stop you from being a mother. You hang in there, even when you don't, because when I had my boys, them two twin towers, see, I could sit here and tell you about it, and I didn't, you always hear me say, I didn't change from what was instilled in me. You hear me say, I prayed over them, I speak over them, spoke over them, and sometimes I get really, really emotional talking about them, because my youngest, the one who really, really bumped against the grain, that U.S. Marshal, he always coming to me and telling me, how he know God has blessed him. See, when your children speak about their Christian walk, because see, I wanted them to have something to hold on to when mom is no longer here. You understand? When mom cannot encourage them. See, I wanted my boys to believe in what I believed. So I began to speak things over them. And so now I hear them tell me, especially my youngest one. He tell me, he say, I know. He said, Mom, God really has blessed me. And he'll start just crying. That humbles me. When my oldest son, talk about his relationship, that just, oh God, I come out of myself. See, you got to move self out of the way. You gotta get this thing, because I really want you to be blessed. it's a blessing. It's a blessing to hear my children talk about God, you know? I'm trying to hang in here. See, I want to cry on camera. See, I want to do that because I get ugly. Oh, ugly cry, you know. But I want y'all to know, you know, Mother's Day is a wonderful day. It's a day to honor mothers, you know. And so I honor mothers today because it's a lot that we go through. Labor alone is something else, you know. That's how I don't know how people have more than one and two children, because see, that youngest one snuck up on me. Yeah, he did. When the doctor told me that I was, you call me and say, congratulations. Me and my husband was together, and the oldest was in the back seat. He moved up in between the seats. I said, congratulations. Child almost passed out. My husband was over there happy. Child went to looking out that window. Shaking my head, saying, oh God, Lord. I ain't have a name for him because we never could. They took so many ultrasounds, we never could tell what it was till he popped out. And they said, a boy. I said, boy. It took us. The lady coming down for the birth certificate, she said, Miss Brown. I said, yeah. She said, we need the name to put on the birth certificate. If you don't do it, you're going to have to go down to the vital statistic place, and they're going to charge you to put the name on the birth certificate. He going to leave out of here as Boy Brown. So, my brother, Phil, that's before me, he was there. My brother Wesley was there. And I think my husband's aunt, if I ain't mistaken, she was there. And my oldest sister, she don't have children. She was there. And so they was all trying to help me, you know, tell a name. And I couldn't, you know, I ain't have a name. You know, I had a name for Kelvin because Kelvin is named after my husband's brother. You know, the one, he had a brother that died in a car accident at 16. And so we named him Kelvin. And so everybody, you know, they didn't got used to his name now. But when he was younger, you know, we would go home to Memphis because that's where my husband was from, born and raised. And we would go home to visit, you know, my mother-in-law. And everybody say, you know what, girl, it's so strange that, you know, we saying Kelvin because we hadn't said it in years, you know, and to hear his name being pronounced now around is funny, you know, so it's a funny thing. But I wanted to share that with you, and I hope I encourage you to continue to hold on to God's unchanging hands, you know, because God does not do anything by mistake, you know. He give us everything, you know. And so even though I didn't have that biological mother in my life, I still turned out to be a great mother. Yeah, because I got two college graduates, you know, and I'm proud of them. I'm very proud of them. They didn't really give me any trouble, you know. I didn't have to, you know, run and get them out of jail or, you know, juvenile detention. I didn't deal with, you know, they didn't do that, you know. So I'm thankful. I'm grateful. I humble myself, you know. of everything that God has blessed me, because I couldn't do it without my Heavenly Father. See, I couldn't be the person you see sitting here talking to you. I couldn't be it. And I'm going to continue to stay. And I'm going to continue every video you're going to hear me say. You know, I'm always talking about God, because I want you all to get it. I want you all to be blessed. I want you to understand who God is. And I want you to understand who the enemy is as well. Yeah, I want you to walk in your purpose. I want you to be blessed abundantly. See, it's good to have peace that surpasses all understanding. See, it's good to have the joy that the world don't give to you. You understand? See, that kind of stuff, that's a good thing. Yes, it is. So, as always, stay blessed and not stressed. Happy Mother's Day to all you wonderful mothers. And, you know, as always, I'm so glad we had this time together. I enjoyed my time with you. Yes, I do. So, as always, be blessed. Bye-bye.